What's goody everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute. I'm still battling through COVID right now as I'm making this video, but I feel good enough to start scripting and putting everything together at least. So hey, there's that. Today, I want to talk about a video that I got invited to play alongside some other creator buddies of mine that is made by one of the biggest creators on the planet, Shroud. For those that know what I'm talking about or read the title, honestly, we're diving into Spectre Divide, the newest free-to-play tactical shooter that's going to be standing toe-to-toe with the likes of Counter-Strike and Valorant. I'm gonna break down some things that I liked, some things that I had some issues with, and then send y'all on your way knowing if this is worth your time or not. So if that all sounds good, be sure to sub to the channel and let's get right on with it. Now, I want to give a full disclosure that what you're seeing on screen is not my gameplay. Okay. However, the folks at Mountaintop gave us the green light to talk about our experiences, so that's what I'm gonna do. And real quick, I'm gonna mention this again later, but Mountaintop, thank you so much for inviting me. It was a lot of fun. First things first, let me break down what this game is and what it isn't, okay? What it is a 3v3 tactical shooter that allows you to control two players, you and your Spectre. It's got a lot of aspects that are similar to games like Valorant in the sense of your character having abilities and just the overall style itself, but what it isn't, it's not going to be a Valorant or Counter-Strike killer, okay? And that's fine. Not every game that comes out needs to kill off a franchise that they drew inspiration from. It'll have a lot better footing than a game like Fragpunk though, that's for damn sure. Let me break down some of the mechanics, shall I? You use this thing called a Duality to set up your Spectre in certain angles or have them right behind you, so when you die, they won't expect a second one around the corner. A lot of the time what I would do is I would drop my Spectre on one side of the map and then end up attacking the other side, just in case we wanted to fake a sight push. Also, when you throw the little duality thing, it's not an instant transport, unless there's like a short gap in between. There is a delay, and you can actually see the little path that your Spectre will take to get to the spot you drop the duality at. You can even see the enemy's little Spectre path as well, which I think is pretty cool. Once you or your Spectre dies, you'll automatically swap to the other one, and then if that one dies, you're out for the rest of the round. If there's an enemy close to the Spectre, it'll also notify you so you can swap over. And if it sounds like a lot to explain, it's because it kind of is, okay? There's genuinely a lot that goes into just this one aspect that feels well thought out from every possible angle. And not to mention that the future itself is absolutely beautiful and it shined the brightest in situations where you want to hold multiple angles on a sight. I really wish I could show y'all some sort of clip where I utilize this the most, because swapping to your character, killing an enemy, swapping to your other character, and catching the next one off guard, this is where the game is going to excel. It takes some time to get used to because the mechanic is extremely unique, but once you do, this is gonna have such a huge pull. Now, every round you can either buy a kit that's already pre-made at various costs, or you can build your own. This has to be one of the best features that I've seen in these tactical shooters that utilizes an economy system like this. I would highly recommend Mountaintop keeping this exact thing in the game, because unless you're sitting there studying weapon specs all day, you're not gonna know what makes a good kit. One thing I would say though is try to make it a little bit more obvious which one of you is getting which gun, because there were times that I would buy a kit where I would want the bottom gun and then ended up getting the top gun, and I had to rethink my whole playstyle on the spot, and it kind of created some situations where I would end up getting killed or my teammates killed. But then again, I'm not really good at these types of games anyways, so it was probably just me. That brings me over to the gunplay. And while I was trying to figure out what this game feels like the most, and you know, while I could easily say Valorant or Counter-Strike, I was reminded a lot about Alara Prime. Fucking rest in peace to that game. It is a game though where you stand still and shoot, but you can also ADS, which dramatically increases the accuracy of your shot. Now, the gunplay in this most recent session felt like a two-sided coin, okay? On one side, every gun felt balanced and useful, except the sniper. That thing is about as deadly as the meteor that killed all the damn dinosaurs. But I never really felt like I was underpowered at all. And if I had to pinpoint the weakest weapons, it was normally the LMGs. The other side of the coin, and I think this is more or less on the servers and not the game itself, but I felt like the hit reg was just slightly off. Like when I would ding someone in the head, it felt like the headshot wouldn't automatically register. Now that could also be because we have two sets of armor. We had light and heavy armor, so it could make sense. But it had to take a couple of shots before it seemed like the game knew I was trying to Kennedy the motherfucker in front of me. Outside of that, I gotta say, this is one of the most satisfying shooters I've played all year. Hell, maybe even the past couple of years, if I'm being honest. Next, let's dive into the abilities, because they're in this game, and they have a few that cater to various play styles. These abilities are known as sponsors or sponsorships, and when you select one, you carry those for the rest of the game. There are currently 8 you can choose from that are sort of duplicates of each other, but vary in the kind of gadgets and abilities that you'll get. My favorite one to use hands down was the Pinnacle International sponsor, because it allowed me to not only use frag grenades and flashes, but it allowed me to heal myself when I was about to die, which, side note, you pull your pistol out while you're actively healing. I don't know who at Mountaintop thought of that genius and beautiful idea, but you better give them a raise tonight. I swear on everything that I love, they better DM me with a raise in their pocket. I tried experimenting with other classes. I think there was one that was kind of more focused on AoE stuff, but I'm honestly not an AoE style of player, so it served really no purpose for me. The choices of sponsors that you're presented with are good, okay? They're actually really good for how this game is right now. But I could tell maybe 2 or 3 games in which ones were going to get picked the most and which ones are going to get tossed to the side. I believe if your teammate picks a certain sponsor and locks them in, the rest of the team can't choose them. So if you're gonna run this with a squad, try to find some diversity among you, because while there's 2 types of recons and assaults or whatever, both of you may want the same recon sponsor. Next, let's talk about how the game feels, because the gunplay can be fine and all, right? But if it feels like shit mechanically, what's the point? I gotta say the people over at Mountaintop have nailed it, all right? It's weird to describe because obviously this is gonna feel like the Valorants and the Counter-Strikes of the world. Take a shot every time I say that in this video, by the way. But for some reason, the movement feels a bit more free. You know, it's like they sort of teetered the movement on the edge of a tactical shooter and arcade shooter a bit. I'm not sure if I'm describing it correctly or if that's what they were going for, but I would play the piss out of this for hours. But when I say that, I don't mean it quite literally, because the biggest issue that I need to talk about are the lengths of the matches themselves. Listen, if you're a fan of spending 20 to 30 minutes in one game, by all means, go for it, okay? For me, I get fatigued pretty easily, and if it's taking half an hour to play one game, it's gonna be hard to pick this up and play it during a weekday. These kind of matches would be fine for ranked, you know, but even when CS2 got rid of their short rank games, I felt like I had to clear out the rest of my night just to make room for maybe 1 or 2 games tops, and then I'm just beat. Striking a balance between making the game feel intense while also not making the games longer than the Godfather trilogy would be deeply appreciated. I think the games go to 8 rounds max in the mode we were playing in. Just make it like 4 or 5. You know, and then when y'all want to implement rank, do the full 8 rounds or however many. Because I will say, once you get into these matches, it feels like your time is just so limited, even though you were probably given way more time than you should. And that's what I like. It keeps the game going, it keeps the game moving, and there's no standstills or delays or whatever. But for 8 rounds, that's a lot, guys. That's a little bit too much for me. Now, there's a couple things that I want to rapid fire on before I go into my final thoughts. First, the sound design. Beautiful. The audio cues came in nicely. I was actually able to hear what was going on and be able to communicate that with my team. Also, the gun sounded pretty damn crispy, which I can appreciate, so there's that. Next, the art style, unique. Interesting, makes it stand out. This cel-shaded-esque appearance to the guns and the characters and just the overall theme of the game is a very nice touch. Plus, it's an art style that I don't think is going to require someone with an Apple computer from the 80s to drop like $5,000 on a new PC just to play it. And finally, the map choices that they have going on here, they're very small, very CQB-esque. Some of them I wasn't a big fan of. I think Mill was the map that I enjoyed the most out of all 3, and Metro was probably like the last one. But all of them seem really good and all have a purpose for the game mode that we were playing. So for my final thoughts, I know I mentioned this a bit earlier, but I wanted to reiterate it here. I can't stop bragging about the amount of polish here, and I'm not just talking about the specific aspects of the game when I say this, I'm talking about the entire game. When I booted this game up, I swear I didn't have one issue that I can recall. Now, if I were to experience it again, I may be able to nitpick a couple things here and there, but in the almost 2 hours or so that I played the game, I didn't think of one thing that would make me want to quit playing. I think this game has a learning curve that's going to draw in a crowd of amateurs who maybe played a similar style of game for all of 3 seconds, or those who have played this game for what seems like their entire life. That's a good thing as well. We so desperately need games that give players a choice that also doesn't feel like they have to sit down and take an entire university degree's worth of prep and other bullshit just to play it. That style works for a lot of other games. It would not work here, and if that's one bit of advice that I can give to Mountaintop above all else, keep this game on a playing field that makes everyone feel like they have a chance. Now, when I saw that Shroud was on board with this game, I had a mixed feeling about it, okay? This dude is known for being a human aimbot. I mean, look at some of the shots he's been able to make in various first-person shooters. I mean, the man is an absolute unit. But I was a bit skeptical because while content creators who make their own games isn't a new thing, a lot of them tend to get very mixed reactions among their community and other players. If you wanted my honest opinion, I was thinking that maybe Shroud would over-deliver in a lot of areas, under-deliver in some, and instead of making Spectre Divide, he would make Valorant 1.5, you know? But I gotta admit that the game has its own uniqueness to it, despite many comparisons to Valorant and Counter-Strike this game is going to get. At the end of it all though, I think this game needs a bit more time in the oven and more beta tests conducted like all games that do these tests, right? Once they get a general feel internally and with the beta testers that the game is ready to go, y'all better launch that sumbitch, because if what I played in this recent play session has showed me anything, it's that this game is going to make its presence known, and even more so with Shroud's name attached to it. And one more time, I want to thank the folks at Mountaintop for allowing me to play this game and allow me to talk about it. I hope that they will allow me back into another beta test, because the game was insanely fun, I'm not gonna lie. But now I turn the mic to you. Let me know down below what you think about Spectre Divide, and while you're down there, be sure to smack that like button and pub stomp that sub button so YouTube can show you my content free of charge. And as always, I want to give a monumental shout out to the members of the channel. Y'all are absolutely amazing. Thank you so much for the extra support. It means the world to me. Okay, I feel like I'm not deserving of it, but you guys do it anyways. Thank you. This is Sir Blackout signing off to go rest a little bit more. Okay, it literally feels like the Big Show did like Eddie Guerrero frog splash on my chest. Later.